Dricus Duplessis takes on Israel Adesanya in the main event of UFC 305 for the middleweight title next weekend, and I feel like Dricus Duplessis is absolutely fucked in this matchup. Now, Israel Adesanya, of course, coming off of a really bad look versus Sean Strickland, getting dominated, dropped in the first round, and pretty much 50-45 in that fight, completely nullified on the feet by Sean Strickland's pressure style. Looking back in hindsight, even though Sean Strickland was a huge underdog in that fight and we were massively overlooking him, he was a nightmare stylistic matchup for Izzy because Izzy, he likes to stay on the back foot, jab and leg kick at range, and his boxing, pure boxing and his ability to KO people with the hands isn't really all that unless, someone's really overextending and he catches you with the counter. A lot of the times he likes to just keep it at range, utilize his long rangey strikes, the kicks, and Sean Strickland did not allow him to do that whatsoever, marched him down, put a pace on him, and Izzy was not able to find the KO and just got smothered in that fight. Hasn't competed since then, and Dricus Duplessis was able to get the job done over Sean Strickland in a very close fight, but I do think he definitely won that. I'm pretty sure everybody gave him the middle 3 rounds that think he won. So very close fight, took a lot of damage from Sean Strickland, but I do believe he was able to edge that one out. But this is a completely different stylistic matchup. If you play MMA math, Dricus Duplessis beat Sean Strickland beat Israel Adesanya, Duplessis should beat Izzy, right? I don't really think that's going to be the case because, in Dricus's last 2 fights, ever since we've been rating him highly, because before the Robert Whittaker fight, nobody really rated him that highly, and none of us really thought that he was going to beat Whittaker. I mean, I'm pretty sure most people were taken by surprise with that. But just looking at those 2 stylistic matchups, neither of those guys have any power whatsoever in their hands. I mean, I know that they've gotten TKOs, but unless, Robert Whittaker is hitting you with a picture-perfect right hand like he did against Ikram, he's normally not getting a TKO, and Sean Strickland has complete pillow punches, and unless you're completely wilting like Abus Magomedov, then you're normally going to come out pretty much unscathed. Even though Dricus Duplessis did take a lot of damage in their matchup, I feel like that really did play a big factor with how Dricus approached that fight, because he knew that he could bum rush forward with his sloppy combinations, leaving his chin on a silver platter, doing spinning back fists with his eyes closed, and just throwing technique to the wayside and just going forward like a Mack truck. Because Sean Strickland, even if he hits you with 100 significant strikes, 75 of those are going to be a jab or a teep, and you're not really going to be taking any damage. So Dricus Duplessis, he fought that matchup very smart against Sean Strickland, because he knew that if he just pressed forward, got the grappling going and put combinations together, especially with the kicks, he would have success. Because Sean Strickland, he's good at putting the volume on people, but he has 0 power in his hands. And that's not going to be the case with Izzy, because I don't believe that Dricus is going to fight the same way that he did against Strickland with Izzy, because he knows that the power threat is going to be much more apparent. Izzy, I think we've seen the pictures of him with the gyno as well for this camp. So we have to imagine that, gyno bender's back, and when he has the steroids, he tends to hit a little bit harder. But I feel like Dricus Duplessis, he's going to be fearing the power a lot more in this matchup, which is going to definitely hinder his ability to be aggressive, because, we saw this in all of Israel's classic knockouts, Paulo Costa, Robert Whittaker, and most recently, of course, in the 4th fight with Alex Pereira. If he catches you with a clean counter in the first 2 rounds, he is going to be able to hurt you. He will be able to drop you. And normally he does have very good finishing instincts when he drops and when he's normally able to get the job done. So Dricus is going to have to be a lot more reserved in this matchup, and he's not going to be able to be nearly as aggressive on the feet as he was in his last 2. Even in the Robert Whittaker fight, Whittaker was having a lot of success in that first round. Let's not forget, even on the feet, landing the classic 1-2 high kick, landed that clean, I believe, twice in their fight, and he was outboxing Dricus Duplessis, and he was getting the better of the striking. except for in the second round where he eventually got dropped. And we all know that Robert Whittaker doesn't have a chin, and his defense is nowhere near as good as Israel Adesanya's. I feel like Dricus is not really going to be able to hit Izzy that clean on the feet whatsoever. Israel Adesanya has excellent footwork, very good distance management, and his head movement is very, very good. Some of the best in MMA. He doesn't get hit clean very often. I mean, the only people that are really able to land clean on him are people that are well renowned for being excellent strikers. Pereira, Robert Whittaker, Jan Blachowicz. Those guys are going to be able to outstrike damn near anybody. And Israel Adesanya is making it incredibly close with all of them. And of course, beating Robert Whittaker twice. A lot of people think that the second fight was a robbery, but I think that Israel Adesanya did enough. I think he won 1, 3, and 5 in the rematch with Robert Whittaker. So very close fight, a lot less dominant than the first one, but I still believe that we can't really take away that much from Izzy for that performance. Even though it was a little bit lackluster, wasn't super entertaining, you know, Robert Whittaker is a very high level guy, and he's pretty much not losing to anybody except for these two fighters here in this division. So, I mean, even though Izzy wasn't able to get the KO in that fight where Dricus Duplessis was more recently, I don't think we have to really take that much away from Izzy for that performance. I do think he won that fight. I don't think it was a robbery. Very close fight though. But Dricus Duplessis, without that aggression on the feet, he's going to be forced to go tit for tat with Izzy on the feet a little bit more, just, you know, regular kickboxing range, where I feel like Dricus Duplessis' sloppy style is finally going to get exposed a little bit, because he got away with it, you know, against Strickland. He got away with it a little bit against Robert Whittaker, but I feel like Izzy is actually going to make him pay for, you know, his horrible technique that he has on display. I mean, closing his eyes and just winging the most ugly shots you've ever seen in your life. Comes forward like a Mack truck, very determined, very aggressive fighter. I mean, you got to give him that. But I feel like that is just going to play perfectly into the style of Izzy here. I feel like Izzy's going to be able to, you know, get the head kicks going from where, you know, Dricus Duplessis always lunges in, puts his hands down. Izzy's going to be able to get the fadeaway counter hooks going. You know, the counter right hand that he got against Alex Pereira. And I feel like he's really going to be lighting up Dricus Duplessis here, chewing up the legs with the leg kicks. Even though Dricus Duplessis switches stances a lot, I feel like Israel Adesanya is going to be able to do the same and find his shots. And when they're on the feet, I just cannot imagine this being close. I know that sometimes Izzy does seem to fight down to the level of his opponent, but most of the time, you know, they feel the power early, they feel that range early, and they just seem to be very timid for the rest of the fight. They don't really want to engage that much. And Israel Adesanya, he's not a pressure fighter, he's more of a counter fighter, so a lot of the times he just ends up kind of making them be very unaggressive for the entirety of the fight and doing what he needs to do to win. You know, you may bring up the point that he never gets knockouts outside of the first 2 rounds, but Israel Adesanya, he's gone 5 rounds many times, very experienced, and I feel like that's just more so his style. You know, if he doesn't get the finish in the first 2 rounds, he is very good at just, you know, making sure he wins the decision, staying safe. And Dricus Duplessis, if he is going to have any success in this fight, he's going to have to get the grappling going for sure. He's going to have to get Izzy against the fence. He's going to have to take him down and establish top position and ground control and ground and pound. And Israel Adesanya, he does get pushed up against the fence a lot, but he's very good at using the fence to stay up. Doesn't get taken down very often. The only time he's really been taken down and held there was against Jan Blachowicz at 205, where he did have a speed advantage. You know, the weight discrepancy really did make a big difference in that match, because Izzy didn't bulk up at all for that fight. Walked in there, I think, weighing like 196, 198, something around there. So, you know, Jan Blachowicz weighed way more than him on the night. Dricus Duplessis isn't the absolute, you know, mammoth that Jan Blachowicz is. I don't think he's going to be able to get the offensive grappling going that much. He might get Izzy down for sure, but I feel like Izzy's going to pop right back up. You know, that's going to make Dricus expend a lot of energy, and Izzy's just going to go right back to sniping him at range and making Dricus, you know, kind of look stupid and get exposed on the feet, overextending. I feel like he's going to be running into shots a lot. Izzy just kind of skating along the outside. And I feel like we're honestly going to get a classic Israel Adesanya performance here. I honestly don't predict that he will be able to, win this fight and defend the belt multiple times, because I feel like he's slowly exiting his prime. But, even in his last few fights, I feel like, he was so active for so long. He definitely picked up injuries. I mean, he was fighting 3-4 times a year for a long time. 2 hard fights with Alex Pereira. And, I feel like he went into that Sean Strickland fight probably a little bit injured. Probably not 100%, where no fighter goes into any fight 100%. But I feel like just the way he fought that fight, he probably was injured or just not 100% physically. But I feel like he was so confident coming off of that Alex Pereira KO that he really just overlooked Sean Strickland. I really don't think he thought he was going to have any trouble with him. But of course, the pressure did give him a lot of issues. He probably thought he was going to be able to just left hook KO him like Pereira did. But Izzy does not have hands like Pereira, unfortunately. But nonetheless, I feel like Israel Adesanya is going to get his belt back in this fight. I won't be surprised if he gets a KO, but honestly, I feel like Israel Adesanya is going to go in there and win a decision this time out. Because, Dricus, he's tough as fuck. He won't go down without a fight. And, Dricus's mentality is honestly one of his best attributes, because, even when his eye was fucking swollen all the way shut versus Sean Strickland, within the first 2 rounds, he still went out there and pressed a very impressive pace against Sean Strickland, basically nullifying Sean Strickland's pressure. But, he's not going to be able to fight the same way that he did against Sean Strickland. I feel like he'll look more like he did in the Robert Whittaker fight. And I don't think that, one hard jab to the chin is going to affect Izzy the way it did Robert Whittaker. Whittaker doesn't have a chin. Izzy, his defense is on point. His head movement is great. And, when they're on the feet at range, if Dricus goes in like a Mack truck like he normally does, eyes closed, throwing spinning back fist and, 2 hooks in a row with the chin on the silver platter, eyes shut in the pocket, Israel Adesanya is going to catch him just like he did Paulo Acosta, with a check left hook, maybe a right hand like he did, against Kelvin Gastelum and Alex Pereira, dropping him that way. I feel like, he might get the KO within the first 2 rounds, but I do think that Israel Adesanya will be able to drop him, outstrike him comfortably in the first round. I feel like once Dricus realizes that, he's going to be getting outstruck, he's probably going to go for the grappling a little bit. He might win the second round, because I feel like he's going to desperately be going for the grappling after the first few striking exchanges, where, he is very explosive, especially early, in the second and third round before the 4th and 5th. He'll probably be able to get the takedowns going, but like I said, he's not going to be able to keep Izzy down. Izzy is very good at getting back to his feet whenever he is taken down, and the only guy that Dricus Duplessis has ever subbed in the UFC is Darren Till. And I mean, Darren Till could get taken down and submitted with a gust of wind, so can't really look too deeply into that. I mean, I know he has a lot of submissions outside of the UFC, but that's against much lower level of competition, so it's basically not even applicable here. Israel Adesanya, he's going to have the hometown advantage because, he is a UFC market machine fighter. They always want to push him. They're always going to give him that title shot, and most of the time, if it's a close fight, the judges are going to favor who the UFC wants to win. The sport can be a little bit rigged sometimes, so, you always got to watch out for that. But nonetheless, I feel like this matchup stylistically is a nightmare for the champion Dricus Duplessis. I feel like Izzy is going to come into this fight super motivated and dialed in, probably for the last time in his career, because he's had a very long career. We don't know how much he has left in the tank, but I feel like he is actually very motivated to come in here and get the dub this time. Bad blood between these two, of course, over the whole African champion ordeal. Dricus Duplessis with the gaslighting, of course. I never said that. You'll never find me saying that. And Israel Adesanya with the classic fucking one-liners back.
Fuck where he's from, but I'll show him who he is. Yeah, whatever that means.
Bro, I'm like, I don't know what the fuck he said. It was cringy as fuck, but I think the hate towards Israel Adesanya is really blinding people when deciding this matchup. I mean, on Tapology, it's 50-50. Like, the Tapology picks, almost 1,000 picks now, dead even at 50-50. And, Dricus Duplessis looks about an even split for KO submission decision. Adesanya looks about 75% KO, 25% decision. So the MMA community is pretty torn on this one, a 50-50 fight. The odds reflect that as well. Israel Adesanya is a slight favorite, I believe, about -130. Dricus Duplessis, somewhere around even money, +110 underdog. So I'm not surprised that Israel Adesanya is the favorite. I honestly expected him to be a heavier favorite. I honestly expected him to be a 2-1 favorite here. But, they're showing Dricus some respect with those odds. But honestly, I feel like the way this fight is going to play out, Israel Adesanya is going to look like a 3-1 favorite in my opinion, because Dricus Duplessis, he has that style that can work against some matchups, but eventually, once he gets a guy like Izzy, who's actually really good at exposing holes in people's games, especially with counter shots and striking, I feel like it's kind of gonna get exposed here, and Israel Adesanya, I believe, is going to win a dominant decision, get his belt back. And, Dricus Duplessis is only 30 years of age, still has plenty of time to make his way back to the belt. I feel like Dricus Duplessis could beat, a lot of people in this division. I'd pick him to beat Jared Cannonier. I'd pick him to beat Amavov probably. I'd pick him to beat Khamzat Chimaev. I just don't think that Israel Adesanya is a good matchup for him. I think that Izzy's going to get his belt back, and a lot of people are going to be upset, but the Izzy hate can be warranted. He can, be an undesirable character at times, very cringe, but, you can't hate on the skill set. You can't, look at it in a biased way. If you look at it unbiasedly, I feel like you have to kind of acknowledge that Israel Adesanya is going to be a hard test for Dricus Duplessis. I really don't think that Dricus Duplessis is going to have much success here in this fight. I think a lot of people are kind of going to be looking back on it being like, damn, I'm surprised we didn't expect that with how sloppy Dricus Duplessis has looked in the past. I mean, even in the Darren Till fight, Darren Till was fucking piecing him up with elbows, step-in knees, long left hands. So I feel like Israel Adesanya is really going to be able to expose the sloppy style on the feet. Give me Israel Adesanya to win a dominant decision here. Yeah, I'll say a 49-46 decision. I think that Dricus Duplessis will steal the second round, but I think that, the takedown defense, the ability to get up from the bottom, I don't think that Dricus Duplessis really has a path to victory here against Israel Adesanya unless he just holds him against the cage for 5 rounds and just really pushes like a Marab-like pace on him. I feel like he has to just pull a Marab here, or else he really doesn't have a path to victory, won't get a submission. He's only ever submitted Darren Till. A fucking rope or a fucking string hanging from the ceiling could accidentally wrap around Darren Till's fucking neck and submit him. So can't really look into that too deeply. He's not going to KO Adesanya. I just don't see that occurring, especially on the feet. I mean, maybe if he got a dominant position on the ground, he could pull off a ground and pound TKO, but on the feet, Israel Adesanya's defense, head movement, distance management is going to be way too much. He's not going to get KO'd. So, Israel Adesanya can win by decision. He can win a KO. I feel like Dricus Duplessis literally only has one path to victory, which is a Marab-like just cardio masterclass. I don't see that happening. I feel like he's going to get outstruck pretty handily here. Give me Israel Adesanya to win a decision, get his belt back, and, maybe fight a Mavov. Definitely rematch Sean Strickland if that is next on the table, because, of course, Robert Whittaker is going to be fighting Chimaev. So we'll have to see how the middleweight division plays out. I'm really looking forward to this fight. This card is great as well. But, I feel like a lot of people hate Izzy, and all those people are going to be mad because I feel like people are looking at this matchup very biasly because of the hate towards Izzy, and they're not seeing it for what it is. And what it is, in my opinion, is a masterclass incoming from the last style bender. And I think that Dricus Duplessis is going to get fucked up. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you watched it all the way through, like and subscribe, and enjoy the fight this weekend.